Whispers of dust. The desert wind carried the sound of loss that morning, a hollow tune of loneliness that swept through the dying town of Calico Springs. The sun had barely risen, painting the cracked earth in hues of pale gold and copper. Nothing moved except the tumbleweeds that danced across Main Street and the faded sign swinging outside the saloon, its paint long since peeled away by time and sorrow. Tom Avery sat on the porch of the saloon with a bottle of whiskey and a heart too heavy to lift. He was a man carved from silence, his face lined with the kind of pain that only the West could give. His hat was pulled low, shadowing his eyes, but anyone who dared look close would see the ghosts reflected there. Once, he'd been a lawman, one of the best in 3 territories. Folks called him the Iron Marshal, a man who never missed a shot, never lost his nerve. But that was before the war in his soul began. 5 years ago, he'd lost his wife, Clara, in a stagecoach ambush. He had been supposed to ride with her that day but stayed behind to chase a wanted man. The outlaw got away, and Clara never came home. The men who did it were caught later. Some said Tom made sure of that, but the justice he delivered hadn't healed the hole inside him. He left the badge behind, took to drifting, and ended up here, in a town that had seen better days. The saloon's doors creaked open behind him. "You gonna sit there all day, Tom?" came the voice of Maggie Cole, the saloon's owner. She was in her 40s, strong as oak, her auburn hair streaked with gray. She'd seen her share of broken men, but none like him. "Maybe," he muttered, "ain't much else to do." She wiped her hands on her apron and stood beside him. "You know, you keep staring at that horizon like it's gonna bring her back, but it won't." Tom didn't answer. He just took another sip from the bottle. The whiskey burned going down, but he welcomed the sting. It reminded him he was still alive. That afternoon, a dust cloud rose in the distance. A lone rider approached, slow and steady, like a ghost coming home. The horse was lean, its coat caked in sand, and the rider's hat hung low over his face. When he reached the edge of town, Tom stood up, squinting against the glare. Something about the way the man sat in the saddle stirred an old memory. The stranger dismounted and tied his horse to the rail outside the saloon. "Afternoon," he said quietly. Tom nodded. "Afternoon. You lost, maybe, looking for someone." The man's voice was rough, young but hardened. He looked no older than 20, though his eyes carried the weight of years. "Who you looking for, Tom Avery?" Tom froze. His hand twitched near his belt, more out of habit than fear. "You found him. What's your business?" The young man hesitated, then said, "My name's Eli Turner." "You killed my father." The words hung heavy in the dry air. The saloon doors swung silently in the wind. Maggie appeared in the doorway, her expression darkening. Tom didn't move. "Your father's name?" "Jack Turner. You shot him outside a mining camp near Prescott. Said he robbed a coach." Tom's eyes narrowed. "He did more than that. He killed 3 people, including a woman." Eli's jaw clenched. "My mother died that same year. I never knew the truth. But I've been tracking you for months, Marshal." Tom sighed. "Ain't a marshal no more." "Doesn't matter," Eli said, stepping closer. "I came for answers. Or blood." Maggie took a step forward. "There's been enough blood in this town. You don't want to do this, boy." Eli looked past her, his gaze fixed on Tom. "I didn't ride 200 miles for talk." Tom studied him, noting the trembling hand, the fire in his eyes. "You got your father's look," he said softly. "Same anger, same confusion." Eli's hand hovered over his holster. "Draw." "No." Tom turned away, heading back into the saloon. "Go home, son. Whatever you think this'll fix, it won't." The boy's voice cracked. "You don't get to call me son." The town fell silent. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Tom stopped in the doorway. You're right, I don't. But if you knew what your father did that day, you'd be thanking me, not hunting me. Eli's gun came up. Then tell me. Tom faced him, eyes steady. He robbed that coach for gold he never got to spend. But it wasn't just robbery. He killed the driver, and when my wife tried to shield a child, he shot her too. I wasn't there to stop it. I was chasing the wrong man. When I found him, I didn't arrest him, I buried him. You want to kill me for that, fine. But you should know the truth first. The young man's face paled. His hand shook. You're lying. Wish I was, Tom said. The silence stretched until the boy lowered his gun, his chest heaving. He looked lost, broken between hate and doubt. Maggie stepped forward gently. You need rest, kid. There's a room upstairs. Eli looked at her, then back at Tom. If what you saw is true, then I've been chasing the wrong ghost. Tom nodded slowly. We all do, sooner or later. That night, the town slept under a blanket of silver moonlight. The desert stretched endlessly, the coyotes calling to the stars. Tom sat outside the saloon again, staring at the bottle beside him. He heard footsteps behind him. Eli couldn't sleep. Tom asked. The boy shook his head. I keep seeing her face. My mother. I don't remember much, but I remember she used to sing me to sleep. Said Pa would come back a hero. Guess she didn't know. Tom nodded. Sometimes the people we love wear masks even we can't see through. Eli sank down on the step beside him. You ever stop blaming yourself? Tom looked out at the dark horizon. No, you just get used to carrying it. The boy hesitated. I don't know what to do now. Ride somewhere new, Tom said quietly. Start over. You don't owe your father's sins a damn thing. Eli looked down. What about you? You ever think of starting over? Tom smiled faintly. Too late for me. My life's behind me now. Just waiting to catch up. When dawn broke, the sky burned orange and red like fire on water. Eli saddled his horse. Tom stood by, watching in silence. I ain't sure what to say, Eli murmured. Don't say anything. Just ride. Live. The boy nodded, then paused. You're a good man, Tom. Even if you don't believe it. Tom watched him disappear into the desert haze until the sound of hooves faded into nothing. The town was quiet again, swallowed by the stillness. Later that day, Maggie found Tom still sitting outside, staring at the sun sinking low. She saw the faraway look in his eyes, the kind that meant goodbye. Tom, she said softly, you don't have to keep punishing yourself. He gave a small smile. Maybe not, but some debts can be paid with money or time. Only peace. She reached for his hand, but he stood, tipping his hat gently. Take care, Maggie. That evening, Tom rode out beyond the town, past the dry creek and the rusted cross where Clara was buried. He knelt beside the grave, brushing away the dust from her name. I met a boy today, he whispered. He reminded me of the life we could have had. Thought I'd see you soon. The sun bled across the sky as Tom sat there, hat in hand, his shadow stretching long across the desert. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a single bullet, and rolled it between his fingers. The wind rose, carrying the faint echo of Clara's laughter, the sound of a memory that refused to die. Tom closed his eyes and smiled for the first time in years. When the townsfolk found him, the next morning, he was still there by the grave, his gun resting in his lap, his face peaceful. Maggie wept quietly as they laid him beside his wife. The wind whispered through the sagebrush, and the sky burned gold once more. Eli Turner returned a month later. He stood before the two graves, hat in hand, and placed a wildflower between them. I reckon you found your peace, Marshal, he said softly. Guess I'll try to find mine. He mounted his horse and rode on, leaving Calico Springs behind. The town would fade, as all towns do, until only the ghosts remained. The ghosts of love, loss, and the dust that remembers everything. And somewhere in the desert wind, if you listened close enough, you could still hear the whispers of Tom Avery and his Clara, two souls reunited at last, carried home by the endless sigh of the western dust.